Guys, welcome back to my channel again, and the star today will be the line of the mouse. Uh, this video will be a little bit long because I have to review every single tank of the line, maybe except some tanks that are in common. But the line today is the line of the mouse. I talked in my first video about these 4 tanks. Let me just volume down the volume of the music a little bit, sorry. But I really love the music of the sound in of this garage. I talk about these 4s. This is the lowest. It's kinda meh tank. These are fast breakthrough tanks. This one is the most armored on these 3s. And from what you can see, now we have a division here. We have the first tier 5, that is the Panzer Aus 4H. The Panzer 4 Aus 4H. This is a very iconic tank in the war. This is one of the most famous tanks in the war. And sometimes is even in this game, because this tank is one of the funniest tanks that you can have before the HE nerf. Now with HE nerf, this tank, like the Sherman, are really falling apart. So maybe you can try to use this 75 centimeter, the 7.5 centimeter, 75 centimeters is a little bit high. And this tank is practically a normal Panzer, and very similar to the other Panzers in his family. A fast, an agile, not this Panzer 4, this one. Agile, a bit weak Q5 tank. It has 80 millimeters of frontal armor and 50 millimeters of frontal armor in the turret, so you can't basically bounce anything except maybe some tier 4s. Even this one can easily penetrate your frontal armor. You can't side, you can't angle. The only thing that I suggest you to do is hold down, trying to reach a hold down position, so you can actually hide the majority of your tank. And why this? Because here you have some spaced armor, space protection of 5 millimeters that actually can protect you from HE and maybe hit rounds, but hit rounds will go through as always. But if they can pen, the space armor will absorb the damage. So if you are angled like this, the shell is penetrated, yes, but it's still more difficult to respect without the spawn liner. So basically Panzer 4 is like a bigger version of the Panzer 3, the tier 4. That is the Panzer 3J. It's a bigger version, bigger gun, bigger hit points, bigger armor. A nice tank. Maybe not the best one, but you can make it work. Now this one, the VK4001 AUSP, that this is the, I think, the prototype or the prototype version of the Tiger Porsche. Back in the day, this tank was much better because it had higher speed. But even here, this tank isn't the slowest, but isn't as fast as it was before, when they changed lots of things on the lower tiers. Now it is a heavy tank, tier 6 heavy tank, the brother of the VK3601H, and this doesn't mean that this tank has armor. As you can see, the armor in this tank is very bad. You can't bounce anything unless you use your full hold down position, but even with a PCR they will go through easily to your tank. So this tank has a little bit of problem. You can't side scrape, you can't rear side scrape. This tank, I like the aesthetics about this tank, and I like it on World of Tanks Blitz because there is a medium and it's much faster. But here this tank is crap, total crap, unless you treat it like a medium tank. If you treat it like a medium tank, this tank can work very well, because you can use the 8.8 centimeter to actually bombard the medium tanks. You can use your heavy hit point to basically troll anything that is a medium. You can I suggest you turbocharger here, because you have to play this like a medium tank, and maybe you can actually use or coated optics or a stab, because a stabilizer is quite nice thing to have. Where is? I can't see the stabilizer here, but I know that you can put stabilizers here. You can put stabilizers. I can't find it honestly, and maybe here you can put or vents or something else, because this hit point pool is super high. And that's it. If you can use this tank as a medium tank against tier 6s, you will crush them very hard, because you have this big DPM and this big amount of health. And medium tanks, I don't say that they will struggle, but for medium tanks it will be more hard to penetrate your turret, even if some mediums can go through like nothing here. So don't expect too much about this tank. I'd say this tank is very difficult to enjoy. Very difficult. I think you will sell it very fast. Tier 7, the Tiger Porsche. Tiger Porsche actually is what the VK4001P must to be in his tier. There is a problem about this tank, that this tank has the same gun that had Tiger 1 pre-buff. What does mean? This means that you don't have this high damage per minute that Tiger 1 has, but on the other hand, you have a part of these weak points that you have to very carefully hide them. You have armor here. You have some armor. Your lower plate isn't great, but they will not penetrate through your armor like butter. And even the turret isn't the thickest, so this is actually not the better version of Tiger 1, but sometimes you can bounce here. Very good. So this is very good. Maybe other tier 7 has to load promo to penetrate you here. So this is a very nice thing about Tiger P. But Tiger P has everything worse respect Tiger 1. So I make how I equip Tiger P, because I sold it, I have to rebuy it. But Tiger P actually is not a bad tank. It's not like oh, it's a bad tank. No. Tiger P can be enjoyable. A stab here or a vents, decide what you want, because I can't find stab here. And this tank is very enjoyable in my opinion. And this tank doesn't have bad things like the tier 6 or lower. This tank actually has some armor here, and you can use it because when you try to wiggle your tank, I know this is the greatest tactic, but you can try to wiggle, or you can try to put yourself in a position that you angle like this, but you have all these hidden, because these are the weak points about the tank, and this is very frustrating about this tank. But I'd rate this tank much better respect to the tier 6 version. And now we are going to the crowns, the big tank about the mouse family. the VK100-01P. VK100-01P is one of the best, funniest tank that you can have on tier 8. Why I say this? I'm not saying this because I'm a German lover about tanks, but because this tank is very good. And my favorite tank is its premium counterpart, that is the Mauerbrecher. I compare this tank to the Mauerbrecher. I want to compare this to the Mauerbrecher because I have to introduce the line. This tank is much better. It's more like a mouse respect to the other tier 1, tier 7. This tank you have big chunk amount of armor, a big caliber gun for its tier, but you are slow as fuck. Let's see on tanks DG the VK100. VK100. No, this was the the version that was nerfed. If you can see, the armor is much more here respected to HP. So if you angle this tank correctly, the enemy will struggle to pen you. Even if with gold shells, if you angle it correctly, a part of the cupola, enemy tanks will struggle to penetrate your tank. Here you have some weaknesses. This is why I prefer the Mauerbrecher respect this one, because you have this big tumors here, and you can't angle the turret because it's shaped. It isn't shaped like a mouse. It is just, you see this shape here that doesn't allow you to angle the armor of the tank. But this tank is much better respect HP. It's a very enjoyable tank. Here you can be overmatched by 122mm, but you actually don't care because you're a high tank. This tank I like this tank. How I'd equip this tank? Of course, this tank. I always put para this one. Due range, maybe when they buff HE, you can actually use this one, but I'd suggest this one for now. Of course, improved hardening, so you have that more hit points. I'd put gun rammer, and you can try a stab, or as always, a stab or a turbocharger. Even if I don't suggest you turbocharger, or vents. If you don't know how to what to put a vent. That improves everything. But honestly, I'd put a vertical stabilizer. And if you see here, this is I just take this away because it was a vent, but this is before the equipment 2.0. How to play VK100? VK100 you have to basically side scrape. Against tier 8 you will have lots of fun if you side scrape correctly, and even if sometimes they spam gold, you can actually troll them, and their gold maybe won't go through your tank. If they use AP, you're basically nightmare. Let me just see how at tier 7 sees you. A tier 7 can't penetrate you. And this could be a very high penetrated tier 7, because if I equip Black Prince, for him it's much harder, because you have 130mm on side armor, 116 in the turret, and you have of course 120 in the back. But this tank is very good armored. And how I'd rate this tank? This tank I'd rate very high, because this tank this tank compared to the others is very fun. Is one of the first tanks that you can actually use to compete against other tanks, because this tank has super armor, a very nice gun. The gun isn't a mouse gun, but I'd rather say it's more similar to the E100, because you actually punch very hard here, and because you can't use the 105 because of course terrible penetration, or if you want spam gold and achieve that higher DPM, but I suggest the 128mm. So this tank is one of my favorites. The motion is the small mouse. The small mouse Of course, the small mouse, it's a little bit worse respect to the VK100, in my opinion. As I played the small mouse, the armor, the problem of the motion is that the armor falls apart. You have practically the same amount of armor as the very similar to the Mauerbreaker, but you have actually I think a bit more armor respect the Mauerbreaker, even if the turret is very similar, even the side armor, but the side armor is actually higher. I think the turret is practically the same as the Mauerbreaker, so very easy to penetrate with gold shell. And yeah, you see it, the VK100 was much harder to penetrate with gold shell, and you have this huge tank that can't stand each spammers and a PCR spammer. Let me just grab the ML2 that has a low hit penetration, and you basically get penetrated. But I think every single time, because these chicks are much bigger respectively VK100, and you have this cupola that is the same as the VK100. But what you earn from a part of being a bigger target for enemy tanks, you actually earn less punchy gun, but a little bit punchy gun, and you basically earn some DPM. That's it, and these equipments that you can actually use it. The great thing about this tank is it points value. It points. It is 8 points. They 1,600 on tier 9 is very good. Is very good, and 8 points are very high. And as you see, you can actually achieve a very good dispersion factor. You can actually use events, as I told you, or turbocharger. Turbocharger can work here because you can actually go 30, but honestly, I'd suggest you vertical stabilizer. Maybe in open maps you can put coded optics to achieve more spot view range, but as you see, your first line tank, you don't be expected to spot. And a good thing about this tank, of a part of its hit points, it's honestly, I don't see there are other good points about this tank apart of hit points, because you can actually be track here. Your armor against gold shells isn't there, and if you go here, you can actually be penetrated here, and you have this big cupola. And I think it has the same problem as the Mauerbreaker. You can actually penetrate here without any problem. So I'd rather the motion, not the best. If the enemy spams AP, you're good. You're good. Your angle and your enemy won't penetrate you apart of the cupola. That you can actually maybe hide it like this. If you're playing like a Mauerbreaker, for example, you can actually hide like this and go forward and backward. But if the enemy load gold, this tank kinda fall apart. I'd rather rate this tank better respect the Tiger P, because Tiger P you don't have armor even against. You have some armor against AP, but here against AP you have armor. And the hit points on this tank are absolutely enormous. So you can trade and you can try to bounce something. Much better respect to these tools. Much better. The king of the crown, the tier 10, the mouse. Mouse, it's a very controversial tank. A lot of people love it, a lot of people hate it. I'm the part that loves the mouse, honestly. I really like this tank. This tank is, I'm not saying one of my favorites, but it's not similar to the VK100. But if you can make mouse work, it blocks everything. No one can penetrate you anymore. Good thing, no more cupola here, and more armored cheeks, more armored side, so you can angle the mouse more. Look, If you angle like this, the turret, they won't penetrate you with AP. And same way it goes to APCR. The problem of the mouse is these chicks. Are these chicks that are a problem, but with the mouse, you can actually bounce targets in those chicks. Apart, let me see the 112. You can actually bounce the 112. Let me just angle a little bit more the side armor. The hull armor is basically very difficult to pen unless you are TD. But see, you can bounce 340 millimeters of each shells. Imagine, like, for example, an AMX 50B can penetrate you right here. Because I don't know, they don't have armor under here. But look how much better the armor is on the mouse. And the mouse is very good if you know how to angle your tank. It's not like some people say it's HP Pinata, because if you know how to angle the mouse, they won't pen. They won't pen unless tank destroyers. But if you know how to angle your tank, really, they can't go through your armor. See, this is the Eva the Crown Bank. 0% of penetration. 0% of penetration. Here it penetrates, but you can even angle a little bit. The trick on how to work the mouse is on how much you angle it. So, how to play the mouse? The mouse as the motion is a frontliner, SVK 100 and Titagp. Those are frontline tanks that you need to use your 8 points to make your team push, to make your team to and to protect your teammates with your big armor. I'm not saying that the mouse is an easy tank to play, because I'd rather suggest you the E100. It is a very good tier 10. But I'm saying that the mouse can be a very pain in the ass if you encounter it. If you really encounter it against this, it can be very painful, because the mouse has, look how many E points, 3,470. 3,470 is more than 90% of the tank's DPM. So, and the gun is actually very nice. You can actually put vertical stabilizer. What I put in the mouse, I put super heavy spawn liner, because here again it was before HE nerf, and I don't like even artillery, so I slapped a super heavy spawn liner. But the gun itself, it's very good. Look the dispersion on the turret traverse. So you can actually do this with a mouse. You angle your turret, as the enemy shoots, you aim and shoot, and only 0.04 more dispersion. You can actually, it's like, man, it's it's devastating. It's like 0.48 or something, and you can actually aim it very quickly, because this tank has a very quick aim time. And this is absurd. If you think this is a super heavy tank with a nice gun statistics, maybe not the DPM, maybe not the penetration, but damn, DPM is fine on this tank. Accuracy is very good on this tank. I see tanks with lower accuracy dispersion with less DPM. APCR are a bit of a weak point about this tank, because this tank doesn't penetrate a lot, so you have to actually know where you shoot, and it sometimes happens that you are a mouse against a mouse, and the mouse angles, and it's very hard. It's very hard to penetrate each other's. So you have to pay attention when you're which tanks you are playing against, because it's 340. So guys, the mouse, already rate this tank very nice. Why very nice? I know it is low. if you don't know how to angle it, you will be absolutely destroyed by enemies. The gun isn't like the 100, the gun isn't like the Panzer 7, the gun isn't like the TIE 5A, isn't like the 705A. But the mouse is a unique tank. What I mean with this, the mouse has the highest hit point pool, first of all. And second of all, the mouse is one of the best armor in the game. This brings that the mouse is one of the best tank that can block enemy tanks. Because with 3400 hit points, you can block basically anything. And you can push even hard because apart respect the E100, the lower plate isn't that big. The lower plate is very small. And to the tracks, you can't actually perma-track it when it's angling. With the E100 you can do it because here is a thinner. But with the mouse you can't. So the mouse has sometimes a better armor and sometimes a worse armor respect the E100. But the tank itself, it played well and not shitty maps. This tank can work really well. Trust me, I have 2 gammas here, and I made some of the most hilarious battles with this tank. Like blocking 4 heavies, blocking 3 heavies and 2 tank destroyers. They keep shooting me, maybe shell penetrates, but I have 3000 more hit points. This is how to play the mouse. Conclusions about the mouse line itself. The mouse line is not as easy as no, I think these points are very similar, but I think the E100 has a better way of it's better only because of the Tiger 1. It is actually better respect the Tiger P. But here the VK100 is much easier to play respect the Tiger 2, and the motion is much difficult. It's more difficult to play respect the E75. The tier 10s, honestly, I'd suggest you E100, but the mouse, if you like to block damage, if you like to hold enemies, if you want a big chunky tank with super hit points, I'd suggest you the mouse. Conclusions about this line. The line itself, I won't say it is an easy line, because mid tiers and motion are motionless, but mid tiers are painful. Depends, maybe you won't notice on tier 5, but tier 6 and tier 7 you will notice it, because Tech P has some armor but doesn't have that big armor as the mouse, and the VK40 I think it's the worst here. I say with gold you can penetrate the motion, but the motion at least has 2600 hit points if you equip it well. This has same hit points as an heavy, normal heavy, and even this one has the same hit points as a normal heavy. At least these ones can have more hit points. And even apart of that, these ones have better armor respect these 3 ones. I know that, yeah, of course there are bigger tiers. No, because in some lines, even lower tiers has great armor. And maybe lower tiers has better armor respect top tiers. I'm talking to you, type 5 heavy line. So I suggest you this line, not your first line, but maybe second or third line. If you want to tank your team, I'd suggest you even the mouse, because this tank can be very capable. Trust me, the mouse and the VK100 are the best in the line. The others, yeah, not so great. Conclusions. Do I suggest you the line of the mouse? As I told you, not first line, but second or third, yes. So, guys, if you enjoyed my video, put a like. If you don't, put a dislike. I will make a slow side and a short version to describe the line of the VK of the Panzer 7 because tier 7 is the same as the mouse, so I have to describe 3 tanks. So guys, if you enjoyed my video, put a like. If you don't, put a dislike. I will see you in the next video. Bye bye.